The following interview is part of the Price of Freedom Oral History Series, sponsored by the Madison County Military Heritage Commission to inform the public of the sacrifices made by veterans in our community on battlefields around the world. Each veteran interviewed received a Valor Award for their heroism during combat and is a member of the Madison County Military Heritage Hall of Heroes. We wish to thank the Huntsville School System and the ETV Broadcast Center for their help in presenting this Military Heritage program. Hello everyone, I'm Tom Kennemer. Today our conversation is with U.S. Army veteran Charles Skip Gill. For his combat action during the Vietnam War, Skip is the recipient of the Silver Star Medal, 2 awards of the Bronze Star Medal with Valor, Air Medal with Valor, and the Army Commendation Medal with Valor. He also received the Purple Heart for wounds he sustained during battle. Skip served 23 years in the Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel in 1989. He was inducted into the Madison County Military Heritage Hall of Heroes in 2019. Skip, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, sir. Thank you for your time.
Tom. Appreciate
you joining us. I understand you're a New York native. Tell us about where you're originally from.
My father was career military, and he was stationed at Governor's Island, New York, and I was born at Fort Totten, New York, the Army Base Hospital, which is in Queens, part of New York City. We lived there for about 2.5 years, and then my father was reassigned to Japan.
During World War II?
This is just before the Korean conflict.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
So we moved to Japan from New York, lived there about 3 years, and from Japan he was reassigned back to Governor's Island in New York, at which time we lived in Brooklyn for about another 2.5 years. And then, lo and behold, he got to the next assignment back to Japan again. So we wound up living in Japan a little over 6 years, finishing up in Japan, coming back to Fort Eustis, Virginia, as to where we stayed until he retired. And then we moved back to New York, out in Long Island, Nassau County. My mother's mother was ill, so we went back there so we could take care of her. That's where I went to high school, and when I graduated from high school in '66 in Baldwin, I volunteered and enlisted in the Army right out of high school.
Yeah, brothers and sisters also that were in the military?
Actually, no, I have a younger brother that did a tour with the military police in the Army. My other brother was an educator, and my sister was a professional nurse. So there was one sister and 2 other brothers.
So it's kind of natural for you to choose the Army, right, because of your dad?
I would say my dad had a lot of influence, and since we grew up in and around a lot of military bases, the military was pretty much part of the structure that helped raise us. And of course, during the '60s, the Vietnam conflict was going on, and even at that time, I was pretty much a history major, studying, or very interested in history and what was going on in the world. So I think that's what prompted me from high school to enlist in the Army and go from there.
What was that how did you make your final decision about going in the Army? I mean, you hadn't graduated from college yet, right?
I didn't go to college at that time.
I see.
I finished up my college later on.
I see.
I would say that just after high school, I realized that I personally felt that I had something to do and something to offer because of the conflict that was going on.
I see. A lot of your friends or your buddies in high school joined along the same time?
Ironically, 2 of my best friends, both enlisted in the Army. One went to Korea, and the other brother, they were twin brothers. John Roach went to Vietnam, and he and I served in Vietnam at the same time in different organizations. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
Where did you go to boot camp, Skip?
When I enlisted, I went to basic training in Fort Gordon, Georgia. And then from Fort Gordon, Georgia, I was selected to go to the Leaders Development Course, which is part of the NCO Academy at Fort Knox. And that was a two-week program for leadership development. And then my advanced individual training was there at Knox in the Armor Branch on tanks. Ironically, it was while I was in AIT that I was selected to go to the Officer Candidate School at Fort Knox. So I never did finish AIT. I was pulled out of AIT early and went straight into OCS when I was 19. I was 18. I turned 19 when I graduated from OCS.
Well, did you serve at, where did you serve before you went to Vietnam?
After graduation, and I was commissioned as Second Lieutenant of Armor there at Knox. I joined the 5th Reconnaissance Squadron, which was a training squadron for Armored Cavalry Scouts. And I was with them for about just a little over a year, and from there I volunteered to go to Vietnam and left the 5th Reconnaissance and went to Vietnam. En route to Vietnam, I went to the Jungle Warfare School in Panama, and then from the Jungle Warfare School, I went straight into Vietnam.
Did you get to choose the field that you wanted to? You wanted to go into armor. I mean, you preferred that, or how did that work out?
Yes, because of rather than being drafted, and since I enlisted, they gave you some options of what branches you wanted. And I chose...
What field you wanted to be in, yeah.
I chose armor as my primary, or reconnaissance, and then infantry as my secondary, and I was able to get the armor branch.
What was your first impression, Skip, when you arrived in Vietnam? What was... I probably have a lasting memory of when you touched down in Vietnam.
The heat, really getting off the plane, the heat just kind of really stood out. But the countryside really was pretty beautiful in the area that we landed at. Remember, it was part of the old French colony, so there was a lot of French architecture there. There was a lot of rubber plantations. So just the countryside, as green as it was. Now, once I joined up with my unit, the greenery got thicker and thicker, so it was different.
This was 1967, is that right?
I went into Vietnam in 1969.
Oh, 69, okay, I see, yeah. Now, was it, you go into, was it most of the soldiers going in, Tan Son Nhut, is that where you most flew into?
Tan Son Nhut Air Base was the main air base in the south where they did the reception. So typically what would happen is when you landed, you spent maybe a day and a half, 2 days getting your in-country equipment, your jungle fatigues, your boots and those kinds of things, your in-processing, and then that's where they decided what units that you were going to fill the vacancies. I was very fortunate that I was selected to go to the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, which was the only cavalry regiment that served in Vietnam the entire time. And we operated in, as you're probably well aware, Vietnam was divided up into 4 military corps. And the 11th Regiment operated in the entire of the 3rd U.S. Corps, which was basically a mixture of rubber plantations, jungle, rice land, and villages and town. Now, the main city, of course, in 3 Corps was Saigon, but that's not where we were located.
How long was it before, when you first arrived in Vietnam, before you were actually in combat?
When you joined the regiment had a base camp in Swan Lock, which they really never occupied. I mean, they had some of their administrative folks there, and that's where you did your initial in-processing. They had a 1-week in-country school for the regiment to try to get you acclimatized to the region and understand what the operational missions were. So it was after attending the in-country school, an opening came up for a platoon leader in the 1st Squadron of the 11th Armored Cav. And I went out to be a platoon leader in Alpha Troop, 1st Platoon of Alpha Troop in the 11th Cav.
Now, in Armored Cavalry, talk about this a little bit, Skip, explain to our audience. It's not only tanks, there's other type of tracked vehicles. Explain that for us.
The Cavalry Regiment is an economy of force type organization. It's made up of 3 cavalry squadrons. Most people understand battalions. We kept the cavalry lineage, so we called our squadrons. So we had 3 cavalry squadrons and an aviation section made up the regiment. Within the squadron, which is a battalion equivalent, you had 3 cavalry troops and 1 tank company. I was assigned to a cavalry troop, and in the cavalry troop you had 3 reconnaissance platoons, and these platoons had a mixture of vehicles. So as a platoon leader, you had your 3 tanks. At that time we had Sheridan's armored assault vehicles, which had a 152 millimeter cannon gun on it, 5 reconnaissance vehicles, or what we called ACAVs. Basically they were armored personnel carriers. Most people knew them as M113s. The only difference was that our armored assault vehicles were equipped with a gun shield on the front where a 50 caliber machine gun was mounted for the vehicle commander, and then 2 gun shields on the left and the right flank where your left and right gunners had M60 machine guns. In Europe, the cavalry troops at the cavalry platoons had an infantry squad with them, and that made up your infantry track, and then you had a 4.2 millimeter mortar track. In Vietnam, we took that infantry squad and broke them up into, instead of having 5 scout vehicles, you wound up with 6 scout vehicles, so it gave us more ability to operate. And then when it came time or requirement to dismount to do our dismounted operations, then you had your infantry elements and your 11 Delta Scouts, who were also qualified infantrymen, to do your infantry stuff. So a typical platoon had tanks, mortars, infantry, reconnaissance vehicles, as well as your medics and a small maintenance element.
What were the living conditions like, Skip? I mean, when you go out on a mission, you know, and generally how long was a mission? You said like 3 or 4 days? You're out for a couple of weeks?
365 days.
It's constant, right?
Again, the regiment was unique.
Right.
In the 3 Corps U.S. military region, you had the 1st Air Cavalry Division, you had the 1st Infantry Division, you had the 25th Infantry Division, and you had the 197th Light Infantry Brigade. So the 3 Corps area, as far as combat troops, had the 3 divisions and a separate brigade, and they had their own areas of operation. The 11th Regiment did not have a separate area of operation. We moved throughout the entire 3 Corps area depending on where the density of the enemy was at that time. So for a period of time we may work in conjunction with the 1st Cavalry Division, or we may work in conjunction with the 25th Division. So for the troopers of the 11th Cav, we didn't have billets, we didn't have tents. There may be a fire support base that was set up because each squadron had its own artillery battery of 155 artillery pieces. So the squadron headquarters and the artillery battery would move and set up in a little defensive position to provide fire support for the ground troops that stayed and operated in the field. So our troopers lived on, beside, or underneath their vehicles from the time they mounted up until it was time for them to go home.
It wasn't like the Hilton or anything like that, was it?
It was not quite like the Hilton, no. So we really didn't have a base camp. The ground troops didn't, and the troopers just lived in the field the entire time they were there.
What would you, someplace you'd get maybe to take a shower occasionally, or jump in the river or somewhere, or a stream? Or,
and that's pretty much what you did. You, when there was opportunities for a riverbed or a stream, or you took your water, 5-gallon water bucket and laid it up against the side of your exhaust manifold on the personnel carrier and heated the water, because the water was fairly warm anyway with the climate, and you just soaped up right alongside of your track in front of God and Country and put your clothes back on.
And you could stand to be next to each other maybe a little longer.
So Basically, though, because we had personnel vehicles at least once a quarter, but actually about once every 6 months, they'd pull us into a major support base somewhere so that we could pull the engines on our vehicles, clean out the leaves, the brush, get all the oil and composite. And normally that was a downtime of about 4, maybe 5 days, so we can get all our equipment cleaned up, and then when it was right back out into the field again. But that, again, was maybe once a quarter, but typically it was once every 6 months.
Look forward to that, I'm sure. Yeah.
That was a little bit of downtime for the troops, yeah.
Skip, tell us about the battle or combat action that led you to receive the Silver Star. Talk about that incident.
It happened in May of '69. Alpha Troop was operating independently in the 3 Corps area. At that time, my troop commander was Bear Palmer, Captain Palmer. We were conducting reconnaissance missions in the northern region, which at this place, area of operation was pretty much a jungle operation with big heavy mahogany trees and a lot of undergrowth. My platoon was operating independently of the troop, and my forward observer, being a country boy, noticed some chickens that were running loose. And his comment was, those are not wild chickens, those are domesticated. So there's somebody here in the area, which then I alerted the troop commander so we could take a look and see if we could pick up more ground activity and get some aviation from our aviation section overhead to see if they could find anything. And they didn't. So when we loggered up that night in the jungle, you take your tanks and your personnel carriers and you just cut a big swath in the jungle so you could beat yourself down an area for fields of fire so you could get your claymores out and put your night patrols out.
Claymores being mines.
Claymore mines,
right.
Individual claymore mines. And it was during that evening we received a mortar and a rocket attack on our jungle defensive position. And Bear, my troop commander, was wounded. And we had a number of casualties in our 2nd platoon. Again, I had the 1st platoon. The mortars came in from the north, working their way south, so the 2nd platoon took a number of hits from the mortars and the rockets, and then the troop commander. Once the engagement was over with, I was able to get the troop commander and the folks medevaced out. I was then the most senior lieutenant left in the troop, so I assumed command of the troop. And then the next morning we went out after doing shooting a back azimuth of how the rounds landed on the position. You could basically tell the direction from where they came from. And we went out to see if we could find where the base camp was, where we took the fire from. And within about an hour and a half, we found them and they found us. So what I had left was my one platoon, a sister platoon, was with me, and my platoon, and a small platoon of M48 tanks. As we started to clear the base camp area, we ran into a very large, heavy resistance throughout, and we started receiving a number of casualties. Ironically, my troop commander, after we medevaced him out the night before, they were able to fix his wounds, mostly shrapnel, and he was able to catch back up and rejoin the troop with our 3rd platoon that was in the rear. He reassumed the position as the troop commander, and then I reassumed as the platoon leader with my platoon, and went off into an assault on a bunker complex that we knew we were taking a lot of fire from. One of my lead vehicles took a direct hit into the cupola, killing my vehicle commander and wounding the other crew members. So During the fight, we were able to get the vehicle caught fire. We were able to get the fire put out and get the soldiers that were wounded out of that track, and then continue on in the assault. It was at that time that I got shot. I took a wound around to the head. Fortunately, I had my helmet on. But my medics were able to stop the bleeding, and we continued on. So I was not evacuated from the field. I did not leave the field throughout the action. So as a result of that action there is where I was nominated and for the Silver Star, and of course also received the Purple Heart for that engagement.
Now, Skip, it's my understanding that you or some of your crew saw where the sniper that shot you was coming from. So you and your men pursued the sniper?
My left gunner, after I got hit, saw where he came from, and he was able to eliminate the threat from that soldier. And as a result of that, they, as we were clearing the bunkers later on, he policed up the pit helmet that the soldier was wearing and gave it to me, and that's what I kept as not as a souvenir as much as a remembrance of that. Yeah. One of the things I would say, though, within the engagement, we did engagements with both the North Vietnam regular soldiers and the Viet Cong. And as a soldier, I would just say that they were pretty professional troopers themselves. So in the cases of where we were, these soldiers were doing what I'm sure what they thought was right for what they had to do as well.
Their cause, yeah.
What our soldiers did. Now, of course, there's atrocities that happened throughout, but in the area of operation where we were, that was not the norm. You were dealing with soldiers upon soldiers, you know. So we tried to always make sure we treated the departed with respect that you would expect someone to treat our soldiers with.
Did you take any prisoners in that mission?
Not that day, no, we didn't. On other subsequent missions, we were able to capture prisoners.
Do you have any lingering effects to this day, Skip, in your wound?
I'm very grateful. I think I'm very fairly balanced, again, as a result of my growth with my father and stuff. So I don't have any PTSD, thank God, the good Lord.
Skip, how do you handle the stress of combat? I mean, what's going through your mind when you know the enemy is shooting at you? Talk about that stress that you have to deal with.
I'm not sure if it's as much stress from the leadership aspects of it. Again, forget your war movies and forget some of the stuff you may wind up reading. You become a band of brothers. So while an engagement is going on, you're really looking out for the man on your left and your right, and it's more of the adrenaline that keeps your system going, and it's not until maybe after the engagement's over with. And sometimes the engagements would last 2 or 3 hours, sometimes they'd last 9 hours, you know, or go into the night. So when that ended is when your system started to come back in. But again, you had the man on your right and the man on your left to give you the confidence that you needed to continue on to do the missions that you were required to do.
Is it normal to be afraid or scared during during combat?
I would say anybody that would say that they were never afraid or scared needs to rethink that, or at least seek some psychiatric help. Everybody has a little bit of apprehension. Everybody has a little bit of a fear while this is going on, but it's a result of your training and your understanding of your job that allows you to push on to this.
Skip, you mentioned your dad. Was there anyone else maybe in your life that you feel especially helped you prepare to take the actions you did in combat? I mean, a lot of the veterans I taught with, well, the drill instructor or during boot camp, an uncle or whatever. Somebody that really, that you think?
Not really. I think I think it's the leadership of your father, watching his personal strength and the way he conducted himself is what is absorbed into yourself. So again, knowing what's right and wrong, knowing to hold yourself accountable for your own actions, I think gives you your own personal strength to take care of those young men that were entrusted in you. Mm-hmm. I was 20 at the time as a platoon leader. There were probably only 7 soldiers in my platoon of 57 men that were older than I was. So everybody was basically 18, 19, 20 years of age. Mm-hmm. So we were all pretty close in our age. I took command of my troop, Charlie Troop, in September. As a result of that troop commander being wounded and evacuated. And in the troop, you have 158 some odd soldiers. Again, I was 21 at the time, and I would say that there was probably less than a third of the folks within the 157 that were maybe older than I was. But everybody was all about the same age, the 18, 19, 20 years of age. Yeah.
You often wonder, would you do it all over again?
Oh, I wouldn't hesitate. There's a couple of things, again, that I benefited from as growing up in and around military bases, especially with the numbers of years living in Japan. And that was right after World War II that we lived in Japan, but also we were there during the Korean conflict. And one of the things that I grew up with was seeing how other people lived and what freedoms they had or didn't have, so that when we came back to the United States and as I matured as a young man, realizing the benefits that we had and the freedoms we had. So there was never a doubt in my mind as to why we were doing things for the right and the good for the world.
I'm sure you form lasting friendships in the service. Do you still stay in contact with a lot of your friends?
Sure do. The 11th Cavalry Regiment has an annual reunion, and I try to attend those as often as I can. And as a result of that, some of the young men that were in my platoon or in the troop when I became a troop commander, we've stayed in contact. And of course, some of the officers, as we progressed through our military careers, stayed in contact with each other. So it was the strength of the young guys in the platoon and in the troop that allows you to be able to do what you're trying to do.
How does it make you feel, Skip, when people call you a hero after they hear about or read about what you did?
Well, I think it's a little uncomfortable. The reason is I think in a number of cases, people receive awards because someone observed an action at a specific time. But maybe if they would have looked a little further to the left or the right, they'd have found another individual doing the same thing. So any award, as a personal feeling, any award that I may have received really belongs to the guy that was either on my left or my right, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to do what we were trying to do.
You're all in that together.
That's it. So the only thing we all were thankful not to share was the Purple Heart. So let's not collect too many of those. Yeah. So I don't particularly enjoy talking about that as much as I would rather talk about the young men that I serve with and the heroic things that they did day in and day out that allowed you to accomplish the missions that you were assigned while you were over there.
Skip, how many fellow soldiers did you lose while you served over there, your tour?
Well, as a platoon leader, I actually didn't lose anybody in theater, I had a number of soldiers that were pretty severely hurt and were evacuated out, one of which died of his wounds when he got back to the States. And then as a troop commander, I had a number of soldiers that received wounds, but I was very fortunate, no fatalities. Now, some of the wounds they received were pretty severe wounds that they'll live with, for the rest of their lives. But the good Lord willing was able to take care of a lot of my young guys.
When you served, there were protests back home regarding the Vietnam War. What was your feelings on that, and did you encounter any of the protests when you got back to the States?
The answer is yes. One of the things that enlisted men and officers do when they go into service is they take an oath of office. And one of the things you do is you take the oath of office to support and defend the Constitution. Well, freedom of speech is one of those things that's part of what's in our Constitution. I may not like what some people say, but I'm here to support the Constitution, and they have that right to say what they believe. So I didn't take it as an affront to me personally. It wasn't that the military volunteered to go fight. It was the government and the Congress and the president that sent us to go do something because of the political side couldn't solve the problem. And the military does what it's asked to do. Now, as far as when I got home from Vietnam, I did encounter a number of people that were still very much anti-war. But again, I looked at it from the aspect, one of the reasons I was over there fighting, or one of the reasons I was serving in the military, was because of our Constitution. And I just took it all with a grain of salt.
Were you ever spat on, anything like that?
No, it's probably very fortunate because it wouldn't have worked out for either one of us if that would have happened.
Wouldn't have been a good idea,
No.
I understand. Skip, a lot of combat veterans say it changes your life after you've been in combat and you serve in a war zone. Did it change your life? How did it change your life?
I think the biggest thing is it gave me much more respect and appreciation for life and family after seeing people being hurt or seeing the way people lived, so that I became more appreciative, and then through whatever actions I could do while I continued to serve in the military, I tried to use that to then formulate how I conducted myself.
I think a lot of people who excuse me, have never served in combat wonder if movies accurately portray what it's really like in war. You touched on this a little bit earlier, but you've been there, you know what it's like. How would you answer that? Again,
You'd have to take a look at the movies itself. There's a number of movies that are out there that are produced or were made, and any form of reality to the actual happenings during the conflict are very much suspect. Ironically, when I left active duty, I was hired on as a military contractor to help train active duty and National Guard soldiers and staff training. And one of the other things we wound up doing, and this was at Fort Knox, was we also helped mentor some of the advanced course students, the captains that were going through the captain career course. And I was asked one time to go view the movie of Saving Private Ryan and put that into context of what experience that I went through, and be able to talk to the soldiers and do a Q&A, question and answers with them on that. Now, this was before 9/11, so at that time there was very little of any hostility going on where our soldiers were heavily deployed, which happened after 9/11. Again, it's art and it's storytelling, and some of the actions are fairly close and maybe bring memories back to you, and then some of it is just pretty bogus, you know. So
sensationalism, a lot
pretty
of
much,
a lot,
yeah.
involved in it. Have you ever been back to Vietnam since the war, or do you have a desire to go back if you haven't?
No, I haven't, but I lived throughout my military career. I've lived in the Orient over 11 years, so I enjoy the Orient. As I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of pretty countryside in Vietnam. But as far as going back to relive the battlefields or those operations, I have no desire. It's not that I have a desire to do it. I just don't see a need to do that.
I understand there's been a great deal of change since
Big
since you
tourism,
served,
yeah.
right?
I've had a number of friends, even friends from the regiment, that have gone on tours back there, and we discussed the stuff. So, I mean, there's no hostility to the Vietnamese people. So it's not there's the desire not to go back because I have ill feelings. It's just it's time to go see something new.
Talk about where all you served following Vietnam, and what gave you the idea that you wanted to serve, make a career of the Army? Was this after Vietnam you made that decision?
It was. After Vietnam, I came back to the States and commanded another company at Fort Jackson, and then went to the Armored Advance Course. From there, I went and graduated through the Army Airborne and Ranger School, and volunteered for Korea. And I found that operation in Korea with the 2nd Infantry Division was close to the same camaraderie of soldiers that I experienced in Vietnam. And it was pretty much at that time I decided that I would try to make it a career. Back then the Army was reducing the size of the military quite a bit, so there was a lot of reduction in force. As I mentioned, I enlisted in the Army right out of high school, so I did not have a college degree. But as I stayed and progressed, I would, no matter what base I was at, I would take night classes. And I was able to get sufficient numbers of credits that the Army gave me a 12-month leave of absence where I was still maintained my salary. But I went to the University of Nebraska to get my degree, which we paid for our own books and stuff like that, but we had a salary. And I was able to get my baccalaureate from Nebraska, and then went back to Korea. So I wound up doing 2 tours in Korea. First one with the 4th and 7th Cavalry up near the demilitarized zone of the 2nd Infantry Division. Went back for the 1 year to go to college and get my degree, and then went back to Korea and served with the 1st Battalion, 72nd Armor, again with the 2nd Infantry Division. From there, I came back to the United States, and I was assigned to the Huntsville area. Not out on the arsenal. At that time, in the early 70s, what the Army had was called readiness regions, made up of active duty, non-commissioned officers and officers that assisted and worked with the Army National Guard and helped train the Army National Guard. And the readiness region, Redstone, as it was called, operated within the states of Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama. So as Chief of Cavalry Operations, then I worked within those 3 states with any of their reconnaissance units. And from there, I was selected to go to the 1st Cav Division in Fort Hood, Texas, and served with the 3rd Battalion, 10th Cavalry in the 1st Brigade, and then volunteered for Germany and was served in the 3rd Armored Division in Germany. When I finished that tour, I came back to the United States and went to the Command and General Staff College as an instructor and a branch chief, and taught the international and U.S. officers at the Command and General Staff College. That put me in about my 22nd, 23rd year, and realizing at that time I probably would never get a chance to go back and serve with troops again, I decided to hang up my spurs and put my saber back in the scabbard and retire.
Those who choose a career in the military face certain hardships. And you have to move around a lot, of course. You may be stationed overseas while your family is stateside and so forth. Talk about some of the hardships, Skip, that military families endure.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, my father was a career military man. So growing up with my father, we never lived any one place 3 years. So about every 2.5 to 3 years, we moved. So that meant a new school, a new region, new friends. Then when I went on active duty, it pretty much worked out the same way. I was either at a location for a year, maybe a year and a half, but never 3 years. So I was fortunate, married to a good woman, and raised our boys, but they picked up the slack, and they moved where, if we had stateside assignments that were accompanied, then the family came. For example, the company assignment in Germany, or Fort Hood, or Fort Knox. But my tours in Korea were unaccompanied because you were north of Uijeonbu in an area. So the family basically stayed back where the family was located here, you know, in the States. At that time, my parents had moved from New York, and they lived in Georgia, outside of Robins Air Force Base. So the boys either went there or went with the grandparents on the other side. So,
Kind of like the South. You kind of like the South, right?
Well, again, when I hired on with this contracting to do training for the National Guard, and which I did for almost 18.5 years. And we trained throughout the 50 states and the territories, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So we still continue to travel, but we were based out of Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, but they allowed us to telecommute. And at that time, most of my sons, as they get out of high school, they elected to come to the Alabama area. So we decided to come here, and I basically worked out of my house, but it was still gone 3 weeks out of 4 every month somewhere.
I see.
And it's worked itself out. But all my boys decided to get that white picket fence and get a house and done. I had one son that was in the National Guard, and he retired from the National Guard. And then I had one son that did one tour in the Corps, and he enjoyed his tour in the Corps, but it was time for him to go do something else too. And the other boys said, no thanks.
It's not for everybody, right?
It's not for everybody.
Skip, when you retired from your Army, did you miss it? Was it a big adjustment for you?
The camaraderie is what you missed, you know, the closeness of the family, the military family.
Yeah.
But again, what was fortunate for myself and my wife is I was hired on as a government military contractor, and my team of educators, a number of them I hired were guys that served with me while on active duty. So we may have all taken our green suits off and put on civilian clothes, but it was still the same family, and we continued on, like I said, for almost 18 years as a team.
So you're fully retired now, is that right?
That's correct.
So what, you like to play golf, you like to hunt, what activities are you still involved with?
My wife and I like to get out and walk the sides of the mountains. As a matter of fact, we've done a number of trails up here in Monsanto. I still like to travel. I just said we lived in Europe, we lived in a number of different states, but there's still a lot of the United States that I enjoy traveling to see. So as much as we can, we get out and go on little junkets here within the states to continue on. I like visiting presidential libraries and, again, with the history stuff.
And there's plenty of honeydew projects, I'm sure.
There's more honeydew projects than I care to elaborate on.
Skip, I'm sure there will be a lot of young people who may watch this interview, and for those who may be considering a career in the military, what advice would you offer them?
Well, the biggest thing is that the military is not for everybody. There is a lot of regimentation. So, you know, you've got to be able to understand that someone's going to be in charge and it may not always be you. But it's also a calling. And so if you choose that as a profession, it's not a job, it's a profession. You take a look at it. You can always try it for your first hitch, and if it's not what you want, then go do something else. But I think it's an honor, personally to me, to be able to serve and help defend and support our Constitution in the United States. So,
you were inducted into the Hall of Heroes in 2019. What was that experience like, and what did that mean to you?
Well, it was, first off, it was a surprise. And I'm very honored that I was selected for that. I'm sure there's a lot more people out there that are much more deserving than I am. But I got to meet some of the other men and the people that have been inducted in the past, great men, and I considered it an honor and a privilege to be in a company with them. And I was just amazed at in the Madison County area of how much the local population is totally in support of the entire military structure. And so to me it was an honor to be able to be inducted. So I guess I just...
Well, it was an honor to have you inducted. I'm sure fellow veterans would say that for you. Skip, I want to thank you for participating in our oral history interview series and allowing us to preserve your military experience for the people of this community. And thank you, sir, for your service to our country.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it
very much. Now, if you'd like more information regarding our interview or any interview in our Military Heritage series, please contact the Madison County Military Heritage Commission website at mcmhc.us. I'm Tom McKennamer. Thank you for joining us.